Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast with Benji Naesen. This is our UAE Tour 2021 preview show. We know you love the race previews. We love doing them too. We just got so G'd up offline going through the profiles in advance. But before we get to all that excitement, let's quickly talk about some big news for us on the podcast. You'll know them from last year. Our first and only sponsor. We're selective with who we bring on as sponsors. You know that with my YouTube channel and with the pod. But our first and only sponsor from last year, Lecole, are back for all of 2021 as our show partner supporting the podcast. You already know that from seeing them on the logo and in the description, but we're waiting for the first World Tour Racing to be back to announce that. So big thanks to Lecole for supporting the pod and making it possible. It's also made possible by the response from you, the audience, last year when we brought on a sponsor for the first time. It's not something I've done frequently before. I'm not promoting things on my Instagram story every day for people to buy. And the response from you, the audience, was incredible. I think you really enjoyed having a brand partnership that was slightly different in that they brought guests to the podcast. Lecole came and organised, sorted out interviews with World Tour riders during Grand Tours for us, Pello Bilbao, namely one of them, and then he went on to attack a few days later. But they've got big plans for 2021. They're soldiering on despite COVID and Brexit and all of those sort of things. Doesn't matter. They've had a really busy couple of months, and there's some big announcements coming out in the next week or so. But if you want to check out Lecole's kit, the link is in the description down below. I think if you join their Strava club, there's some pretty good deals on there as well. They've got a massive Strava community. But anyway, on to the UAE Tour. Speaking of stacked, this field is stacked, Benji. What about this? Tour de France champion Tadej Pogacar, former Tour de France or multi-Tour de France champion Chris Froome. Are you surprised by how strong this field is? Am I misremembering? Is it normally this strong, Benji, or is it slightly stronger than normal, particularly Ineos?
Usually it's actually quite a strong field because I think one of the aspects of the UAE Tour is that it's often seen as the first real race where you see the best sprinters in the world race against each other on sometimes the most flat and most wide roads in the entirety of the preseason, I guess. And this brings forward so much attention to the sprints itself. So that's one aspect, the sprints. When it comes to climbing, you obviously got pretty good climbers as well at these races. This race has a pretty big history. It started as separate races with the Dubai Tour and so forth, and it all came together a bit, and eventually the UAE Tour now is the current name with 2 mountain stages now. That's something they didn't do like 2-3 years ago, and a time trial, which I don't remember that they had last year, but I could be wrong. So all in all, it's going to be a pretty amazing ride. I think it's a race that often goes a bit under the radar because it's in the preseason, but I really do enjoy this race. And perhaps, I don't know, perhaps some people are like offset by the limited amount of spectators there by the side of the road, but I still think it's very much a worthy race to watch.
Particularly because it has multiple pure bunch sprints, so we can see across the week, across the 7 stages, the tactics maybe develop or change from the sprinters, teams and lead-outs reacting to what might have happened in the earlier stages. I really like that. It's also, and we're going to get into it now, one of the easiest stages to define what sort of stage it will be. And I'm telling you right now, the stages will either be pancake flat, sprint, and maybe if you're lucky, some crosswinds. This is out of the 7 stages. So there's first stage is exactly like that. Second stage, 13K ITT. Third stage, mountaintop finish. Fourth stage, pancake flat, bunch sprint. Fifth stage, up to Jebel Jais, another mountaintop finish. Stages 6 and 7, pancake flat, bunch sprints. So puncheurs need not apply. That's why, Benji, when we have a look at this start list, there are no puncheurs here, are there? There's no Hirschi. There's no Cosnefroid, there's no Alaphilippe, no Schachman even, like a punchier guy who can go for a 1 week GC that's why you're not seeing those riders here. It's either pure GC guys or sprinters, and you got to be a pretty brave man to try and get in a breakaway this week, I think. But who are the GC favourites, Benji, if you want to pick them out from a few of the teams? All the World Tour teams are here, obviously, and there's no Pro Conti teams, just all World Tour.
Yes, the first name obviously the name that everybody's looking at the moment for the UAE Tour is Tadej Pogacar. Last year, obviously Tour de France winner, but also I think second in the UAE Tour last year after Yates, and he's usually pretty decent in February. I think Algarve, or was it Valenciana, one of the two last year, was a pretty great result. I think it was Valenciana, and he also was good at Algarve 2 years ago. So every single year he's pretty good at the start of the season in February. We don't know what the difference is going to be during the season. Regarding last season, we had half a season, but basically condensed in the latter part. And this year, it looks to be more spread out at the moment. So it's interesting to see riders go back to their preparations of pre-2020 and look into how that's going to lead from the UAE Tour into the other races that are upcoming. And Pogacar obviously is one of the names you need to put down. He's got the time trial for the 13K kilometer time trial. Yeah, that sentence was great. And we've obviously got the 2 mountain stage we'll dive into in a second here that will certainly suit him. The thing about Pogacar is that he's not scared to attack, and we've often seen in the UAE Tour that riders who are not necessarily the favorite at the start decide to attack a bit earlier and eventually end up almost winning the stage or winning the stage in the end and taking time in GC that way. And I think that really helps Pogacar. The thing that doesn't help him is that everybody's going to be looking at him because, well, he's won the Tour de France. And that might offer opportunities for other riders. And perhaps I'd like to let you talk about Pogacar first before I dive into a rider that I see as someone who will do well here, and that's Adam Yates.
Well, it's his home race in that he's on UAE Team Emirates. It's a really big deal for them. Much bigger than last year. They've got the Tour de France champion. It's going to be sort of kind of like that first game after an NBA team wins a championship when they what's the ceremony? Americans will let me know the ceremony when they give them all the rings, etc. Maybe we'll see something like that. And I think there might be a little bit of pressure on him. He didn't win last year. Second, Yates destroyed them on her feet, put a minute into everybody after a lot of attacks on that climb. I think stage 3, Pogacar won stage 5. There was only 5 stages last year. You'll remember this was the start of COVID, really, with the shit hitting the fan when riders got stuck in UAE having to quarantine in hotel rooms for a long period of time, and everyone. A lot more uncertainty back then. That was the UAE Tour last year, which Adam Yates won. But yeah, I think Pogacar, maybe a little bit of pressure on him, actually, to do well here. Because, yeah, he's the Tour de France champion. He didn't win last year, and they're going to want to show the world that their team is the best. Big logistical exercise, getting everybody, all the teams across to the UAE. I know they chartered flights, I think, Benji, from Paris and Milan last night or yesterday. I can't remember. They're bringing their TT bikes as well, right? So, because there's the TT. So that's just a massive undertaking for everybody flying out to the UAE, and it's for them to, and yeah, they're just going to want their man to do well. And they've put a team, you look at the team they put around him: Formolo, Polance, Maika, and Bjerg. Gavidia's just got the one man, pure lead-out man. It kind of shows the direction the team is taking for this UAE Tour. Or do you think there's any pressure on Pogacar, Benji, or not? Do you think he'll care about it?
I think there's a lot of pressure on him, but Pogacar seems to be the rider that doesn't really care at all about pressure, does he? I
don't know. When's he had pressure on him before?
I don't know, but last year in the Tour de France, he didn't have the pressure of outside, but probably in the team they had a lot of pressure on him in the last week. But all in all, he seems like the guy
they wrote him off
all the time.
They told him the Colnago was sending him the white Colnago for Champs-Élysées stage. And he said, "Are you fucking kidding? Get the yellow one ready."
Yeah, I don't think Pogacar is a rider that feels much pressure, even if the
Yeah,
pressure is
I
from
don't
everyone.
disagree. I was just playing devil's advocate.
Yeah, yeah. I do think like that. Not necessarily the pressure on him, but the fact that everything has changed surrounding him. Last year, he was not the favorite in the races he rode. He was an outsider, let's say, and
Yes.
this year he is there as the head favorite, and that offers opportunities for other riders to shine. And there's one rider, I mentioned him earlier, that I do see trying to profit off of this, and it's a rider that attacks always relatively early compared to everybody else because he's basically got nothing to lose as an outsider, despite winning the race last year, and that's Adam Yates. And I think that Ineos is here with a very strong team as well to either support Yates or Sosa. I don't know what to expect from Sosa, even if he won Chalerenard last week, because Sosa is so inconsistent throughout the year that it's so difficult to guess whether he's going to do well or not. And therefore, I might generally say that I trust Yates more for the UAE Tour than Sosa. Is that something you agree with or disagree with?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Because we'll get into the profiles in a second and then talk about our picks afterwards, I think. But yeah, I agree. Let's get into our picks afterwards. I won't foreshadow too much what I was going to say. But yeah, GC contenders for Ineos, Yates, Sosa, and Filippo Ganna, question mark. Some people try to tell me he could be. I mean, we're about to see how he does on the climb. So my view on it is a strong no. We'll get into why that's my view in a second. As it is a kind of a mixed team, I think they're going to struggle to make an impression on the race. Alpes and Phoenix, they've got Van der Poel, Philipsen, and Sprint Train. We're going to see whether Benji is correct and that Philipsen will get opportunities. I presume they're going to ride for him in the sprints, and then the stages don't really suit Van der Poel at all if he's
I
not
think
contesting the punch sprints. Yeah, he's here for the money or what, Benji?
I think one of the things we noticed last season is that Van der Poel's weakness as lead out was his positioning. He was always kind of bringing his sprinter Merlier in that year forward and trying to worm his way into impossible gaps to try and push forward, but Merlier could not follow that because Merlier
And
is not
not
insane.
smoothly either.
Yeah,
Not smooth, like hard acceleration.
yeah, exactly. And because Merlier doesn't want to have his life taken away because of Van der Poel's crazy maneuvers in the last 2 kilometers, he's likely not on the wheel when Van der Poel makes that acceleration. And stuff like that, I don't think that will happen on this race because the character of the UAE Tour is that there's so wide roads and like it's a wide road from city to city and there's like basically no steep corners in there. So I really believe that except for the final stage, that his lead out from Van der Poel could be really powerful here because there's on paper so much space to push through and so much space to make a gap for their sprinter Philipsen. And I think that we might be seeing something along the lines of we once had a lead out by Sagan for Ackermann 2 years ago in some low key race. I don't remember which race or where in the season even, but it pretty much destroyed the peloton because Sagan's lead out was so powerful for Ackermann. And I think Van der Poel did that once last year as well for Merlier in one of the smaller races or the year before. I don't remember. And I think we might see that with Philipsen and Van der Poel here because, well, quite simply, there's such a wide road and Van der Poel's flat power compared to, I don't know. I don't know who I can compare it to be honest. Let's say
Shane
Archibald.
Archibald.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do we like name the same rider? Anyway,
Yeah,
yeah,
I agree. GC for Astana, Lutsenko, I think that's their main focus. Bahrain will be going double GC, maybe even three with Caruso. Benji's going to pick him for a sneaky top 10. Just I don't even need him to say it at this point. But yeah, they got Poles, Caruso and Haig. Should suit them. They should all be pretty solid going for top 10 on GC. Sprinters Milan and Wright, I think will be leading out Phil Bauhaus, who won the other week. Bora is kind of set up the same way as UAE. They've got the pure sprinter Ackermann with a couple of lead out men, Lars Schwarzmann and Benedetti, and then they've also got Konrad Buchmann and the first appearance of the mountain biker Ben Zweihoff, and so we'll see how he goes. This should actually really suit him, UAE Tour, because it's wide roads and simple riding, flat and then mountaintop finish. It's not. Yeah, I mean they'll be the run into the position at the base of the climb, but yeah, not as bad. Cor Vos sprinting for Viviani. We'll see what Benji has a take on whether this might suit Viviani, so they're set up to sprint for him. De Koning mixed as well. They got their sprinter Sam Bennett with four lead-out men: Archbold, Cabaneo, Murko, and three lead-out. And Kaiser. And then they got Almeida with Masnada supporting. Almeida for GC, one would think. EF, Uran, Bissiger, Guerrero, Igita. I really want to see how Igita goes in the TT and these mountaintop finishes, see if he's back from his injury last year. Uran, sneaky top 10, definitely on the cards. FDJ, Valta and Badilati to watch on the mountaintop finishes, see how they go with the big boys. Other than that, not too much to write home about. No Arnaud Dumas, he's skipping out on the sprinters early season champs, Benji. Don't know what to say about that. Yeah. Intermarché, got Minali as a sprinter, Monkeys as a GC man, one would think. See how he goes. But now, Benji, sorry, I had to rush through all them, otherwise we'll never get this done. Israel Startup Nation, the big man, Chris Froome, his first race for ISU. On the disc, will he make them give him a rim brake bike for the mountaintop finishes? How do you think their team? How do you think Froome will go, Benji? You think there's gonna be much fanfare about it?
I don't know. Sometimes I do hope that we see a good result from him here. I don't know what to expect. He mentioned a few weeks ago, I think it was 2 weeks ago, that last season, after the season, they did a new checkup on him and they found some new issues that they're fully resolved now. So according to that, he's 20% better, is what the words were in that interview, than at the end of last year or something. So I'm hoping that's true, because I always kind of feel bad if someone gets injured and then can't really come back to top form. So would be cool to see him battle out with the greats. Doesn't need to win before that, but I'm still looking forward to it. I think that he's gonna be top 20 on the climb. And the reason I'm not saying higher is because Froome was never a great early season, and therefore I just don't expect it this time either, even if his form is good throughout the season. I think that he's got the big trouble that a new generation is arising, and it's going to make it really hard for him to succeed in the comeback he's making. And I don't see it happening in this UAE tour.
I mean, yeah, it looks to me like he's doing a cookbook collaboration in Santa Monica the last month and a half. So how that will go compared to the altitude camps of some of the other boys, not sure. So not holding my breath for a good result from Froome. They've also got Rick Zabel for the sprint, and Greipel's there, I don't know, to lead him out, I guess. Jumbo-Visma, Sepp Kuss, his big GC opportunity. See how he goes with the TT, where he will be riding 100% for himself. No excuses. Jonas Vingegaard will be watching closely too, as well as David Decker for the sprints. I think he might get himself involved and get a few top fives looking after himself. Lotto Soudal, Caleb Ewan for the sprints. Nothing more to say there. He's going to win a few of them. That's how it is. Movistar, Valverde, I think he came top 10 last year. And Mühlberger's first appearance. I really want to see how Mühlberger goes on the climbs and on the Canyon TT bike after being on the Shiv. Bike Exchange, the sprints probably suit Caden Groves. Good flat, like pure flat sprinter. Other than that, not a particularly strong team. Colleoni, interested to see how he goes in the sprints. And maybe Schultz could go okay on the climbs. Colleoni's climber, yep, sorry. He came second, I think, on a Baby Giro stage. DSM, I think, are going for Case Bowl in the sprints. And that's about it, really. I think Case Bowl's better than Dainese. Do you disagree with me, Benji? That they're not going to go for Bowl?
I think they should go for Bowl considering last season, but I don't know what Dainese's role is going to be. Is he going to be part of that sprint train, or is he going to be a second sprinter for the team? I know last year at a certain point they sprinted with two people in the same group, right? But I don't remember who it was. Wasn't it in Tirreno or something that they were sprinting with like two riders? Anyway, Nikias Arndt probably going to be lead out. Asbjørn Krogh Andersen, I think it's family or brother of Søren, yep, who's also going to be part of that sprint train. I don't know who their fourth man in that sprint train is going to be. Is it Dainese? Is it the likes of a Florian Stork or an Arensman? Arensman sprinted pretty decently at Provence, something like that, one of the early season races here. And therefore, I do see him doing well in the lead-out train as well. So, yeah, I'm curious, what if there was a Hatterdam stage this year, like last season? Then I would have been so curious to see what Arensman could do on that train, but there's not. So, unfortunately, that is not the case. I love Hatterdam. Anyway, Quebecer Assos, next team on the menu. Nizzolo here as sprinter. He already won once so far. That was Almeria, yes. And he's got his lead-out train here. Walscheid. They've got Peluki for that as well. I think a friend of Nizzolo as well. Harry Tanfield probably going to be a fourth man in that train to kind of set the speeds before they do anything. But with teams like this, we're often saying like, ooh, this rider as fourth man in the train. But there's only so many trains that can form in a sprint. And I don't think Quebecer Assos is going to be the really big train that we're looking for. I think we're likely going to see different teams control the sprint. Yeah? Tell me.
Disagree. Well, you got Lotto strong, but Lotto like to come late. De Koenig have Archbold, Kaiser, Merku, Cataneo, not their strongest. No Askren for setting the pace from long. Archbold didn't like what I saw last year. Ackerman has Schwarzman, Lass, Benedetti. Not that much. We've got small teams, 7 teams. Half of the sprint teams are going for GC as well, being De Koenig and Bora. UAE with Gaviria, he's got Recese, that's it. So I don't think there are many big trains. I think Quebecer Assos have a nice mix with Tanfield, more of an engine guy, setting pace from long. Then, yeah, Peluki, Lassenom and Hansen, I think is a track guy. Volscheid, great. I think on paper should be a really good lead-out man. I think it's been pretty good. So, yeah, I think Quebecer Assos have a great lead-out, actually. And Nizzolo looked good at Almeria, and I think he was going to be thought of as clearly a top guy last year before his injury, which came at a really bad time after that crash. So that's my reasoning, Benji.
Yep, okay, I'll take it. But still, don't think it's going to happen. Trek Vincenzo Nibali, who's always pretty weak early season, so I don't expect anything in the UAE Tour. Top 45. Let's say he's going to end 37th in GC. That's a nice spot. Moschetti for the sprints. Lippens as lead out, I think.
Yeah, it's going to court lead out.
Court is third man or something.
Yeah.
But
Moschetti could go pretty well. Moschetti could go okay on these flat sprints, you know.
He was good early season last year, Moschetti, in Playa de Palma, I think, where he beat Ackerman head on. He always gets injured, though, so call. I hope he can really evade injuries from this point onward and can really shine as a sprinter, because he's always been talented but never was able to show it. But I'll give it to you for ending our team section here.
Oh, yeah, that's all the teams and the main riders to think about. But let's talk about the stage profiles now. First stage, pure bunch sprint. It's not from Al Dafra Castle to Al Mirfa. 176 Ks. I think it goes along the coast for the last while. There's 2 intermediate sprints. Not sure if there's bonus seconds. Yeah, I guess we'll talk about who we think is the best sprinters at the end, because there's no point giving different answers for different sprints. Stage 2 ITT, 13 kilometers long, very twisty. If you can see this, maybe if you're looking at the YouTube video of this TT, it's I don't know how many turns in these 13 Ks, but obviously Ganna's the favourite. That's all there is to say, really. Do you think it's clear who's going to win, Benji?
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear, to be honest. I think that there's perhaps a few people that could do decently here, but I don't think anyone's going to come close at all to our Italian.
There's not even a Soren Kragh Andersen here, is there?
Yeah. I think the time trial competition in his previous time trial this season was better.
Yeah, and it was harder for him with the climbs, so pretty clear Ganna victory, unless the turns cause him problems, which he seems to be a perfectly fine bike handler to me. So Mikael Bjerg is fine and showed okay results in some TTs last year, but so the stage winner is going to be less interesting if all goes to plan compared to the GC TT battle. Will Pogacar show himself as, will he come top 5, Benji? That's my question to you. Does Pogacar come top 5 in this pancake flat 13K prologue plus length ITT?
I think he's not going to end top 5. I think he's going to end like 7th or 8th or 9th, but not too far off top 5. I just think that with these prologues, we might see the actual riders who are hunting for these prologue and time trial stages to come out on top. And perhaps the GC riders can be a bit behind it. And also because Pogacar should not be peaking around this period. I know last year you were like, "Oh, peaking does not exist." Oh, but I think that
it doesn't exist.
Sure, buddy. Then the time trial in UAE Tour, like, yeah, I don't think Pogacar should be in a form to win it all, and therefore I don't expect him to win the time trial or top 5. I think he's gonna be not too far off, but it won't be his best TT of his life.
I think top 5 lock for Pogacar. I think Bissiger top 5 lock. Swiss rider on EF. He came 3rd in Binkbank in a strong TT field with some turns too last year in 2020. Mathieu van der Poel, Benji. If we're talking about talented riders, if someone that could actually beat Ghana, his TT is just not quite good enough, is it? Like he lost 10, 13 seconds to Kra Anderson in a 10K or 8K flat TT last year. I don't think he can do it either. I'm not expecting a top 5. I think Bissiger's okay though. What about Jos van Enden? You got him as well. Dowsett. I'm just trying to find some names, some power guys that might surprise. Almeida, Benji. Is Almeida top 5?
Yeah, he is, but Ghana wins.
No, I know. We've accepted that. I'm saying for the GC guys, who is going to do well, or who else might we see filling out that top 5 slots, or you expect?
Yeah, I think this is where he's going to be shining certainly, and pushing a bit to force a bit of an edge on the other climbers in this tour. And I think that will be like that for all the GC favorites, GC riders that are here that are pushing for this GC, that they're going to try and get an edge on the time trial, obviously. I think it will work better for like Almeida, because he was throughout last season, together with Pogacar, the riders who surprised most on time trials during the season for their GC in total. And I think he can gain a solid amount of time on, let's say, a rider like Adam Yates, who is not necessarily the best time trialist in the world. So, yeah, I think the time trial can give them a bit of an edge, but I don't think it's going to be all deciding necessarily. I think that the climbing stages that are coming after the time trial will do more damage.
Who do you think is going to be the best placed GC rider in the TT, or do they have the best time?
Joao Almeida. I think his preseason last season was good, and I think that it honestly does kind of fit him, the terrain all in all, because the climbs are not the very steep kind. They're the decent, steady gradient ones, and having a time trial before that certainly improves his chances of doing well, and he will likely be closer to that leader jersey. I forgot which color it is in the UAE Tour, but to that leader jersey.
Orange or yellow or something? Orange, maybe?
Don't remember, to be honest.
No, it's TDU. Yeah, I actually agree with you. To be honest, I think Almeida, should do a good TT here, but I think Pogacar will do well as well. Froome, I don't see it. Sosa will lose a lot of time, and Yates, who knows, but should be just okay. And I'll get into why I think Almeida is a good shot for GC in a second. Stage 3 from Strata Manufacturing to Jebel Hafid, 166 Ks, pancake flat until the final climb of Jebel Hafid. 10.6 Ks at 6.9%. Sounds steep-ish, 7%, but this is where it suits Almeida, as Benji mentioned. The first 8 Ks are steep-ish. We've got 8.4 Ks, 9.9 Ks for the 4th kilometre, 8.4 Ks. But then the last 3 Ks gradient, 3.9, 5.6, 0.4 for the last 600 metres. So you better attack early and distance Almeida, who's a decent climber. I mean, that's understating it. If you want to keep that gap, because the last 3 Ks aren't very hard. Bear in mind, if you want to get that gap in the 4th K, after a third K that's only 5% gradient, where drafting's still really important, you've just done a stage where everyone's been sitting in the whole day. So how do you think this climb will play out, Benji? Because I think it's going to be a reduced bunch mountaintop finish sprint.
Yeah, it's kind of difficult. I think that we're going to see, it's 10 kilometers, so it's not the longest one. I think that you can't really say that somebody's going to attack early and it might stick. But last season, I do think that worked out for Yates. So, I think it's going to be, oh, this is so difficult to think about. It's been a while since we've predicted mountain stages. But I'm going to say that we're going to see a 3-man group sprint for it in the end.
Kind of like when it was Lutsenko, Pogacar, and Yates, I think, last year. 3-man group sprinting.
Something in that form.
Yeah. I think that's possible too. I think one man attacking at the back, a third of the way up, staying away, seems very, very unlikely to me, because if that's the case, there are fairly strong teams here with strong climbing support that can chase that back. If Pogacar attacks early, I know he's good, but Sosa, Martinez, Amador for Yates, he's going to need to be on some crazy level to stop them chasing him down. But who knows? Same applies in the reverse. If Yates attacks, he's got Micah, Polonce, and Formolo to close it down. So it would need to be multiple riders from the main GC teams in order to stay away. Stage 4, also, pancake flat sprint.
Wait.
Oh, yes.
This is also the reason, Jebel Hafid, that I don't think Ghana can actually do GC in this race.
Oh, yes, good point, Benji, yes.
I think in the time trial, he can definitely gain time on everybody, and like a proper amount of time, between like 10 and 45 seconds towards GC riders.
Yes.
I think if it was only, very possible. I think if it was only Jebel Yais, who comes later into this UAE tour, which is a not as steep but longer climb, steady gradient as well, then he could do well. But I think this is too steep, and I think this will be too explosive for Ghana to follow with the big guns and thus secure a GC. If it was solely one climb in this entire UAE tour, I would have said, go for Ghana, Ineos. But with this Jebel Hafid, I don't see it possible, to be honest.
I agree, and it's a great point, because when you look at the climbs he did better than expected last year in Giro. They were like Jebel Yais. They were 20Ks, 5%, and literally you look at every K, it's 5%. And, perfect for Rowan Dennis, and fine for Ghana depending on the pace it's done. But this climb, as I mentioned, and if you watched the UAE tour last year, the irregular gradients, some steep, some almost flat, means it is explosive, as Benji says. It's sort of completely slow and then attacks. Nothing and then attack. I don't think that suits Ghana. I think it suits the pure climbing guys. And they got Yates here. So I don't even think he's going to, depending on his gap in the TT, I'm not even sure it's something he's going to try. I think Tirreno is where we're going to see what he can do if he's in the leader's jersey going into that last mountaintop finish. Now, I think it'd be interesting if they'd reverse the mountains stages at UAE Tour.
Yep.
If he was in GC leader's jersey, I think they would ride full to protect it if they had the Jebel Jais first. Okay, good point, Benji. Sorry, stage 4, long stage, 204 Ks, Al Marjan Island to Al Marjan Island. They do a loop. There's some... no, not really. It's pretty flat.
We're going to say there's some hills among the terrain.
I was going to say, I saw on the Lanterne Rouge profile, there's a couple of, they go up to 20 meters. So it's a highway interchange is the biggest hill. They go to 26 meters. That doesn't make a difference. Pancake flat sprint stage. And there's a U-turn in the last K or so, apparently, or a couple of Ks. But stage 5, Benji, you mentioned it. What's it look like?
So we go from Fujairah to Jebel Jais. It's a longer climb, above 20 kilometers, but the percentages only go to like 5.4%, so very, very steady. It's not like there is a peak of like 11 to 12% throughout the climb. It's basically a highway up a mountain, and I'm not even joking there. It's literally a highway up a mountain. That's for every climb in this race, by the way. And quite simply, I think that like you mentioned, it would have been so interesting to see if they switched both these climbs around and had Jebel Jais first, because you know on Jebel Jais that it's harder to make an explosive move because the gradients are not there. You're going to basically be allowed to have a Ineos train on this kind of terrain to bring your rider to the line. But if we compare that to Jebel Hafid earlier, which is like a much steeper climb, then if you switch these climbs around in the parkour, it would have been such a better race, because you'd have like on the first stage, Yais, you'd have just a simple train going up a mountain, which you're also going to have right here. But the difference is that now the deciding mountain stage for me still feels like it's Jebel Hafid, even if it's earlier in the race. And perhaps you might see some attacks on this one, but it's going to be so much harder to make a difference on this stage than it would have been if Jebel Hafid was the last one.
I think this stage really suits someone like Conrad or Almeida, but it depends. If Pogacar's 5 seconds down on GC, I don't think he's going to settle for second. I think he'll attack and attack and attack and attack. So yeah, I think this suits someone like maybe even Ruben Guerrero, who's not a threat on GC. Maybe if Guerrero's lost a lot of time on GC and attacks with 4Ks out, he could be an option. I think Higuita's a huge option here. And I think depending if his form is like it was in Colombia last year, I think he has to be the stage favourite just about. I remember stage 4, I think it was, in Tour Colombia last year. And Colombia has very similar stages that are quite polarised, and it's just like a long drag too. And he's nasty in a reduced bunch sprint at the top of a mountain, Higuita. So he's one to definitely watch out. Yeah?
To prove my point, 2019, stage 6, Jebel Jais, a 9-man group, well, let's say an 11-man group was sprinting for it in the end. So it's not like you can make a huge difference on top of this climb. Do you believe that there's a capability for riders like, let's say, we saw in the Giro on the Sestriere stage that Vendrame can climb. Do you think Vendrame could hold on Jais and try and sprint at the end of Jais?
No, I think it's going to be more someone like Harm van Hulke from Lotto. You remember Etna? Mm-hmm. So Etna is similar. Stage 3 Giro, Etna. Etna has steeper stuff, I'll be honest, but it was the same thing. It was all the GC guys just attacking each other relentlessly, if you remember. And Kelderman actually got away. But there was 3 guys up the road, Visconti, I think Caicedo, and Harm van Hulke. And I think that sort of fits in with I don't think it's going to be someone like Vendrame, but I think someone like who can climb on their day on not a hard stage. What about Sepp Kuss, Benji? We haven't mentioned him enough. The Americans will be like, what the hell? Did we not mention Sepp Kuss on Jebel Jais or Jebel Hafid? We should really... How do you think he's going to go?
I think he might do well, but his stamp troll is probably not good enough to stick himself close enough to perhaps even compete for GC here, unless he gains a lot of time on Hafid. And I don't know. I think that Hafid's the only place where Kuss can make a difference, not Jais. And I don't see it for GC. I perhaps see it for the stage winner Hafid.
I got a young rider, Benji, good prospect. It's a pretty hot take. He's sometimes good in mountaintop finishes in a reduced bunch sprint. Balabalin Alejandro Valverde. Okay. How do you think he's going to go? Pre-season, I know it's not in Spain. I just trolled you so hard.
Yeah,
you probably think I was going to talk about Antonio Tiberi on track.
I thought you were going to say something like Vingegaard, because...
Vingegaard, seriously. Yeah, Vingegaard's quality too, but maybe not this good if Pogacar and Co are there. But Valverde, if he is on any decent form at like 41 years old, again, same way Higuita would be a favourite. It's got to suit Valverde too. But Almeida, it's just, I don't know, I think it might be a boring stage, but then we'll have an exciting last kilometre with riders like Almeida, Pogacar, Higuita, Valverde all trying to compete for that sprint at the end of the mountain. Stage 6 to Palm Jumeirah. I think I've seen that on Instagram a few times. It's a pancake flat bunch sprint. Again, 2 intermediate sprint points, and the same pretty much applies to stage 7, which is from Yas Mall to Abu Dhabi Breakwater, 147k stage, 2 intermediate sprints, and maybe might be exposed to the wind. Hope it will be. We talked a lot about GC, Benji. There's 4 pure sprints in this race. Who do you think is going to be the top dog? Do you think anyone's going to win multiple sprints? Who do you think will be the best trained? Because I have my view.
I think we're going to see multiple riders from other teams end up winning stage. I think I see a stage win happening from Philipsen. I believe he can prove himself in this terrain. He usually does get at least one stage win early season. I think with a lead out like Van der Poel on wide roads, that might definitely be in the cards. I hope to see a surprise victory by David Dekker. But when it comes to the top dog, it's difficult to look past Ewan to win a stage. I think that Caleb Ewan's definitely going to take home at least one stage. I think we're going to have 4 different stage winners for the sprints. Is that a hot take?
No, I disagree. I think Bennett, Ewan 2 each, and Ackerman multiple top 3s, Viviani a couple of top 3s, Dekker top 3, and that'll be that. I think maybe Groves will be up there, but I think Ewan and Bennett are too good. And Ackerman, we'll see. And I don't think these suit Philipsen, but I've been wrong before. Case Bowl, Dutch fans will be saying big guy, but I guess I got to continue my negative takes against Case Bowl. Why stop now after the Tour de France last year? So yeah, I don't think Case Bowl's winning a stage either. Oh, actually, I take it back. I think Nizzolo's going to take one. I think Nizzolo's quality, and he looked good at Almeida. So you and Nizzolo, Bennett will be the ones really mixing it up. Maybe Ackerman too if he launches at the right time. I just think pure flat sprint, Benji, Ewan and Bennett they're just too quick. I don't think the other guys are on their level. I think it's clear separation between them and the others.
Yeah, but I do see early season as an opportunity for others to shine through, because this is the point where they shouldn't be on point yet when it comes to their schedule. And I actually think that we're gonna see 4 different stage winners on these 4 sprint stages. So a different winner each sprint stage, and generally wouldn't surprise me if that happens, because we've got so many. If you look back in the past, Cavendish days, there was such a huge gap between the top dog and the rest.
I wish this was Abu Dhabi Tour with Kittel, and then the next best sprinter was I don't know,
Get old Sulik.
my dad. And then we could just be like, Kittle's going to win every sprint, and then end the podcast. But unfortunately, and no, actually not unfortunately. Fortunately, it's a little bit more complicated than that. Bissiger, Benji? What about Bissiger? It's not hard enough, these stages? You get blown away?
Meh. I don't see it happening.
Again, Vendrame, not hard enough?
Not for pure sprints. If there was something like Hatterdam here, that would fit so perfectly with Vendrame, but flat sprints are a no-go for me for Vendrame. I really think that we're going to see the top guns fight each other, and that out of those, the ones that can surprise are the likes of David Dekker, who has not performed at World Tour ever because it's his first race for Jumbo and his first World Tour race. So pretty cool stuff for him. And I truly believe that Dekker might be one of the riders that I see becoming a top dog in sprints in the coming years. And why not open it up on the first race you ride for Jumbo, right?
Gaviria, we've not mentioned him, Benji. He's on the home team. I've not liked the look of what I've seen from Gaviria, and I don't think he's... Thing is, if he's on form, he's actually one of the riders good enough to beat Ewan and Bennett straight up. But I don't like the shape of his form at the moment, unfortunately, and he doesn't have much of a lead out either. Now I get on to our predictions for GC, Benji. Pogacar is the prohibitive favourite. He's at $2 odds on Betfair just about at the time of recording on Friday morning or afternoon European time. Other favourites, Almeida, Yates, Sosa, I guess, Koos, Froome, who am I missing? Uran, Bookman, Conrad, Conrad should go nicely. I think top 6 or 7 he should be targeting. But who are you picking for GC, Benji?
I think I'm going to. Everybody's gonna pick Pogacar, so I don't feel like picking Pogacar.
Me either.
I think that Pogacar is gonna finish second behind Joao Almeida, and third on GC will be Adam Yates.
Yeah, that's my pick. that's what I think too. To be honest, I think. Yeah, I think Almeida, it suits him really well. And you know what, Benji? You know why I think it suits him? It's because of all the intermediate sprints and how he's got a bit of punch. And if it is a matter of seconds here or there, which with these 2 climbs and the easy stages, these guys can't generally get massive gaps. And given that, okay, say Yates puts 40 seconds into Almeida on the main, the first big day, the first big climb, yep. And then Almeida puts 15, 20 back into him in the TT. There's 20 seconds. And then say Almeida beats him in the sprint at the end of the second climb, takes back another 5 seconds in bonus or whatever. Now we're at, quick math struggling here, 15 seconds. Then you've got all these intermediate sprints, which, yeah, sure, he might get blown away, I don't know, but he's got a strong flat sprint train like Kaiser, Cadno, Murku, Archbold to go after those extra seconds if he needs to. So that's why I like Almeida too, because he can get seconds in a variety of ways. The TT, the second climb I like for him, depending on how it shapes up, and the bonus seconds on offer. Whereas I think Yates, a little bit more one-dimensional. He's going to have to get them on the climbs, and that's how he won last year. Pogacar, yeah, he's a favourite for good reason. He's all-rounder, probably should win. And listen, don't act like you guys picked Almeida. How could you pick him over Pogacar? Like, we know, so don't add us if Pogacar wins. We're just trying to let you know something that might happen. And yeah, it's pre-season. Pogacar didn't win every single stage race he did last year either. But what about some hot takes for someone to come top 5 or top 3 on GC, Benji? Not necessarily a prediction, but something that might happen that wouldn't surprise you. I think Caruso top 8. Let's bet. I like 3 Bahrain riders top 10. That's my prediction.
Whew, that's pretty sick. I think I'm going to shout more in the direction of a surprise sprint. I think Minali's going to top 5 a sprint stage. Okay. And I think that's my hot take for this one. I'm not sure I have a hot take ready for like GC. Higuita's pretty good early season. Higuita could genuinely win on Jais. Fuck it.
Yeah.
Higuita wins on Jais.
I think Mühlberger will do better than any Bora GC guy.
Okay.
So, see how he goes there. He beat Conrad in the TT last year, but it was an uphill TT, but I think Mühlberger could go pretty nicely at Movistar. Might be wrong, probably will be. But that's I think that's been our UAE Tour preview. I don't have too much else to say. As you can tell, pretty excited about it, even though it is a pretty simple race. But in that sense, these races are really necessary, and I like them in that, Benji, you can really get a sense of who is the best sprinter. There's no like, oh, well, there was this hill beforehand and that messed up the race. It's like, if you win 3 of the 4 stages here and then you keep doing well in the Grand Tours, then it's a pretty strong argument you're the best sprinter. And if you absolutely smoke the other riders on the climbs, then you're like, yeah, he's a top climber. So that's what I really like about these stages. Now, it's not actually very exciting racing until the end. Is the main problem. But some of the climbs, particularly the first one on stage, 4, 3, even Jebel Hafid, struggling here, is that's actually a pretty good climb to watch. There should be attacks there, one would think. Although I would have put it second because, I don't know, people might be less inclined to go for broke if they think they've got Jebel Jais coming in 2 stages. But yeah, what are your last thoughts on UAE Tour, Benji? A bit underrated? I know people like to meme about the lack of spectators.
Yeah, that's a huge meme for it, but I still think that it's a very fun race to watch. It's a first indicator of what we can expect throughout the season. And it's, yeah, some people don't like it because UAE has its history and its current ongoing political situations, but I very much enjoy the race in the cycling aspect of it, and I look forward to seeing the sprint stage because, like you mentioned, that's the ones I'm most looking forward to in the OE Tour, even if that doesn't really make sense sometimes. So yeah, I look forward to seeing a nice race, and therefore we kicked off our first proper race of the season.
Thanks to Nicole for supporting the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast. Go and check them out. Check out their stuff on their Instagram or on their website. Link in the video description down below. And we'll see you. Obviously, forgot to mention, we'll be bringing out stage recaps of every single one of the UAE Tour stages. So make sure you check them out. They'll be dropping a couple of hours, if not sooner, after the conclusion of each UAE Tour stage. Although I haven't checked the time zones, so I'm now very scared. That's all from us. Ciao.